Greetings, dear subscribers and casual listeners of my channel. The Harry Potter series is full of unique characters, each of whom adds something special to the magical world. However, not all of them receive the attention and recognition they deserve. Today I want to discuss a few of these characters whose interesting and significant traits often remain in the shadows. Enjoy the video. Number 1. Lavender Brown. In the films, Lavender is portrayed as just another love interest for Ron, but in the books, her role is much more multifaceted. She was witty, cheerful, and a loyal friend, always supporting those close to her, like Parvati. Lavender was also a fan of divination and had a great affection for Professor Trelawney, which added to her charm. Furthermore, she showed bravery during the Battle of Hogwarts, fighting alongside the other students before losing consciousness after falling from the railing. In the books, she survived, which serves as further proof of her strength of spirit. Number 2. Barty Crouch Jr. This character is significantly underrated in the films. While he gets some attention in The Goblet of Fire, his storyline was heavily cut. However, in the books, he became one of the most layered and tragic characters. His relationship with his father, Barty Crouch Sr., who was consumed by his career and unable to understand his son, vividly demonstrates the complexity of family ties. Barty was not only a loyal supporter of Voldemort, but also an excellent teacher, especially in the field of defense against the dark arts. His work as a teacher proved quite successful despite his personal beliefs. Number 3. Fleur Delacour. Fleur started as a beautiful and naive character portrayed in The Goblet of Fire as the typical student from Beauxbatons. However, over time she reveals herself to be an intelligent and well-rounded individual. Fleur not only demonstrated exceptional magical abilities, but also resilience when participating in the Triwizard Tournament. Becoming Bill Weasley, or his wife, she appeared as a reliable companion, capable of bravely fighting against Death Eaters and Voldemort. This character development showed that she was far more than just a pretty face. She was a true heroine. Number 4. Regulus Black. Regulus is one of those characters who received much less attention than he deserved. He was a complex and multi-dimensional hero, and his heroic act often goes unnoticed. Despite his background in a family of Death Eaters, Regulus was able to recognize the wrongness of his path and took decisive actions to destroy one of Voldemort's Horcruxes. This decision, which cost him his life, was an act of true bravery. Regulus was one of the few who could acknowledge his mistakes, and his story carries a deep moral message. Number 5. Charlie Weasley. Charlie Weasley is a character who barely appears on screen, which is a real missed opportunity, because in reality, his character is much more interesting than it seems at first glance. He was not only a brave member of the Order of the Phoenix, but also a person with a big heart. His love and care for dragons made him unique in his family. Charlie not only worked with dragons, but was also the captain of the Gryffindor Quidditch team. Oliver Wood even said that if Charlie hadn't chosen the path of working with dragons, he could have played for the England team. His kindness and charisma deserved more attention. Number 6. Andromeda Tonks. Andromeda Tonks is a character whose name barely registers, yet her strength and resilience make her a true hero. Unlike the other members of the Black family who clung to the outdated values of blood purity, Andromeda rejected those ideals. She chose love over tradition, marrying Ted Tonks, a Muggle-born, and was disowned for it. This decision was not just a defiance of her family, but a statement of her values. Andromeda's courage mirrored that of her sister Bellatrix, but instead of embracing darkness, she chose to live a life of kindness and love. After the tragic deaths of her daughter, Nymphadora, her son-in-law, Remus Lupin, and her husband, Andromeda, found herself alone. Yet she did not crumble. She raised her grandson, Teddy Lupin, with the same care and love she had given her daughter. Through the pain of losing her entire family, Andromeda remained strong, quietly fighting on in her own way. Her journey, marked by loss and suffering, showed her true character. She faced the death of her loved ones, the curse of her family, his name, and the toll of war, yet she stood tall. In the end, Andromeda Tonks proved that true strength doesn't lie in power, but in the ability to keep moving forward, no matter the cost. Number 7, Arabella Figg. Arabella Figg was the kind of person Harry Potter couldn't stand. She was the old woman with a house full of cats, someone who seemed unremarkable, and to Harry, incredibly irritating. But everything changed when Harry discovered who she really was. Arabella Figg was a squib, yes, but she was also a loyal member of the Order of the Phoenix, watching over Harry from the shadows. For years she observed him without ever revealing her true role, all while staying fully committed to Dumbledore's cause. Living among Muggles, she sacrificed her own comfort for the greater good. She was a quiet protector, always close enough to keep an eye on Harry, and yet she never complained. When the time came, it was Arabella who stepped forward and provided the crucial testimony that saved Harry from being expelled from Hogwarts after he used magic to defend himself in the Order of the Phoenix. Her actions were a quiet but vital part of his survival, a reminder that even those who seem ordinary have the power to make a real difference. In the magical world, squibs were often seen as useless, sidelined because they lacked the magical abilities that defined their society. But Arabella proved that even without magic, she was invaluable. She showed that loyalty, courage, and the willingness to sacrifice were worth more than any spell. Arabella Figg's quiet heroism wasn't found in grand gestures or explosive battles, but in her steady devotion to Harry and her unwavering support for the Order. She was a true ally, one whose loyalty went beyond magic, and in doing so, she became a hidden strength in the fight against darkness. Number 8. Ted Tonks. Ted Tonks is a character who often goes unnoticed, yet in his quiet strength lies a powerful story. The father of Nymphadora Tonks and husband to Andromeda, Ted was a Muggle-born wizard who earned respect through his actions. Despite the prejudice and discrimination against Muggle-borns, he never backed down. When the Ministry branded him a criminal simply for his heritage, Ted didn't flinch. He fought back, not for glory or recognition, but for the right to live freely. Ted's courage is most evident in his resistance to the oppression of the wizarding world. He went into hiding, not because he was afraid, but because he knew the fight was far from over. He continued to fight against the forces of darkness, even without the protection of a famous family name. When he died in the forest, betrayed and surrounded, it was a tragic end for someone who had given everything to the cause. In the Deathly Hallows, Ted's death is barely mentioned, but it speaks volumes. He wasn't a person of high status, but he stood as a symbol of resilience. He wasn't the kind of man to back down. His daughter, Nymphadora, might have said, had she been able to reflect on his life. Ted Tonks fought for justice not because it was easy, but because it was right, and his sacrifice is one that should never be forgotten. He died true to his values, never betraying the cause for which he fought. Number 9, Ernie Macmillan. Ernie Macmillan is one of those characters who often gets overlooked. He is not flashy, not charismatic, and certainly not a Gryffindor. But Ernie is the epitome of Hufflepuff loyalty. He's steadfast, honest, and stubbornly righteous. When the wizarding world was torn apart by Voldemort's return, it was Ernie who stood by Harry when others hesitated. In the Goblet of Fire, he was one of the first to believe Harry's story about the Dark Lord as return, even when some of his own friends doubted. Ernie wasn't just a believer, though. He was a fighter. He joined Dumbledore's army, ready to learn and protect his friends. He didn't have the bravado of a Gryffindor, but he had something equally powerful: determination. When the Battle of Hogwarts began, Ernie didn't run. He stayed, fought, and stood firm with his friends, proving that bravery comes in many forms. "We're with you, Harry," he said, a simple but resolute declaration of loyalty. Hufflepuff students like Ernie are often defined by their quiet, unyielding support for others. They might not seek the spotlight, but when the time comes, they are always there. Ernie's courage was never about making a grand spectacle of himself. It was about doing what was right, even when it was hard. His unwavering belief in Harry and his commitment to the fight against Voldemort made him a vital part of the resistance. "Puffendooeys don't leave their friends behind," Ernie would say, and his actions spoke louder than words. He was the embodiment of his house's values, loyal, true, and brave when it counted. In a world filled with larger-than-life heroes, Ernie Macmillan was the quiet one, standing in the shadows, always ready to do what needed to be done. His strength lay in his steadfastness, and in his loyalty, he became one of the unsung heroes of the fight against darkness. Number 10, Madame Pomfrey. Madame Pomfrey, the Hogwarts matron, is one of the unsung heroes of the wizarding world. Without her, the castle would have fallen long before Voldemort's return. She was always there, bandaging cuts, mending broken bones, and curing magical ailments. Whether it was a result of a Quidditch match or a misfired spell, Madame Pomfrey's expertise was relied upon daily. Yet she never sought recognition for her tireless work. It was simply her job, and she did it with quiet determination. She never demanded praise or thanks for the countless lives she saved. In the Chamber of Secrets, after the petrification of several students, she worked tirelessly to care for them, making sure they were stable while the mystery unfolded. Quote 7. She once said, her tone dry, but it was clear her commitment was unwavering. Even when the stakes were high, she never flinched, and Hogwarts students depended on her more than they realized. Madame Pomfrey's contributions were not just about physical healing. She gave comfort in moments of fear, acting as a constant calming presence. Harry and his friends owed her more than they could ever express. Without her, many of them wouldn't have survived the numerous dangerous encounters they faced. In the Goblet of Fire, she was there for Harry after he was injured in the Triwizard Tournament. Her quick thinking and skill kept him alive, and her unwavering care was one of the few constants in a world of chaos. "Don't fuss, Potter. I've seen worse," Madame Pomfrey would say, brushing off gratitude with a sharp look. But in truth, her calm professionalism and selflessness were extraordinary. She was the quiet force behind the scenes, the unsung guardian of the students' well-being, a true heroine, not in the spotlight, but in the moments when it truly mattered. Number 11, Justin Finch Fletchley. Justin Finch Fletchley is often a forgotten name among the many students at Hogwarts. He was a Hufflepuff, a Muggle-born, and, like so many others, easily overlooked. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Justin becomes one of the first victims of the Basilisk's attacks. His encounter with the creature, though shocking, isn't what makes him stand out. It's how he responds to the trauma that reveals his true character. Instead of retreating into fear or becoming withdrawn, Justin chooses to stay at Hogwarts. Many students, especially those who had suffered, might have run home to safety, but not Justin. He doesn't let the terror stop him. He stays, continues his studies, and even joins Dumbledore's army when Harry and his friends form it in the Order of the Phoenix. Despite being shaken, Justin's resolve doesn't waver. He continues to fight for his school and his friends, proving that courage doesn't always roar loudly. Sometimes it is found in quiet persistence. His bravery is most evident when the war comes to a head. When Voldemort returns to power and the final battle looms, Justin is there, ready to defend Hogwarts. He stands with his friends and classmates, fighting against the darkness. It is easy to see courage in the heroic actions of Gryffindor students, but Justin shows us that bravery isn't just about grand gestures. Sometimes it's about standing your ground, even when you're afraid, and doing what's right despite the risks. Courage is not about being fearless, Justin might say. It's about standing up even when the world tells you to run away. His unassuming nature hides a deep reservoir of bravery, one that emerges at every crucial moment. Justin Finch Fletchley may not have been the loudest or most famous, but in his own quiet way, he was a hero, reminding us that courage often comes from unexpected places. Number 12. Aberforth Dumbledore. Aberforth Dumbledore, the younger brother of the great Albus, may appear as a rough, sarcastic man with little regard for heroism. At first glance, he seems to stand in stark contrast to his brother's polished, charismatic persona. However, beneath the gruff exterior, Aberforth reveals his own kind of strength. In the midst of war, when danger loomed around every corner, it was Aberforth who hid and protected those fleeing from the dark forces. As Harry, Ron, and Hermione sought refuge in the Hog's Head Inn, Aberforth opened the door, knowing the risk, yet still choosing to act. He offered them a safe haven, saying, "Get inside before anyone sees you." It's easy to dismiss Aberforth as bitter and resentful, a man burdened by his past. He lost his sister, Ariana, in a tragic accident that deeply scarred him and his family. His relationship with Albus was strained, marked by jealousy and unresolved pain. Yet, in the heat of the moment, when the stakes were highest, it was Aberforth who silently supported the fight against Voldemort. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Aberforth reveals his true loyalty when he helps Harry sneak into Hogwarts, providing an escape route when they needed it most. It was him, I'm sure of it. He helped me. Harry's gratitude for Aberforth's role in the battle shows that even those who stand in the shadows have crucial roles to play. Behind Aberforth's sarcastic demeanor and refusal to play the hero lies a man of deep convictions. His cynicism, though thick, masks a quiet resilience. He had every reason to turn his back on the fight, especially after the pain of losing his sister and his anger toward Albus. Yet when the time came Aberforth fought not with grand speeches or dramatic gestures, but with quiet courage. As the final battle raged on, he stood firm, choosing to protect those who needed him, even if it meant risking his own life. "I've got a great deal more to lose than you think," he said, making his quiet sacrifice clear. In the end, Aberforth Dumbledore is not the hero we expect, but rather the unsung one we need. His story teaches us that heroism comes in many forms, not always loud, not always celebrated, but always significant. His courage is quieter, more subtle, and all the more powerful for it. Number 13, Maxime. Olympia, Maxime, the formidable headmistress of Beauxbatons Academy of Magic, is often overlooked in the Harry Potter series despite her strength, wisdom, and pivotal role in the wizarding world. Many readers dismiss her as a mere caricature of a French woman, defined only by her towering height and the superficial portrayal of her relationship with Hagrid. However, this reductionist view fails to capture the depth of her character and the significant contributions she made during the dark times of Voldemort's rise to power. Olympia, as the headmistress of one of the most prestigious magical schools in Europe, commands respect not only for her imposing physical presence, but also for her magical prowess and leadership. Standing well over 6 feet tall, she cuts an imposing figure, her broad shoulders and commanding demeanor often associated with a no-nonsense approach to leadership. Yet beyond her exterior lies a woman of incredible strength, both mentally and emotionally. As the head of Beauxbatons, she bears the weight of responsibility for the young witches and wizards under her care, ensuring they are not only educated but also prepared to face the challenges that the wizarding world faces. Her strength is evident in the way she handles difficult situations, such as the rise of Voldemort and the increasing threat to the safety of the wizarding community. When the time came to choose sides in the battle between good and evil, Olympia did not hesitate. While many other magical leaders hesitated or sought to protect their positions, Olympia chose to align herself with Dumbledore and the Order of the Phoenix. This was not a decision made lightly, as it came with significant political risks. Supporting Dumbledore during a time when the Ministry of Magic was increasingly under the influence of dark forces required a level of bravery and conviction that few possessed. Olympia understood the cost of standing by Dumbledore and the forces of good, but she did so unflinchingly, driven by a sense of duty and loyalty. Her actions in the fight against Voldemort were not limited to mere words or political alliances. Olympia took concrete steps to ensure the survival of the wizarding world. One such instance of her bravery is her involvement in the mission to speak with the giants. Despite the obvious dangers posed by the giants, who were known for their aggression and distrust of wizards, Olympia chose to accompany Hagrid on this perilous journey. The mission was a high-risk one, with the potential for disaster at every turn. Yet Olympia did not back down. Her decision to join Hagrid was not born out of a desire for glory or recognition, but out of a sense of duty to the greater good. She knew that if they could secure the giants as allies, it would be a crucial step in the fight against Voldemort's army. This act of courage is often overshadowed by the more prominent actions of other members of the Order of the Phoenix, but it should not be overlooked. The journey to the Giants' camp was fraught with danger, and Olympia's participation demonstrates her unwavering commitment to the cause. She did not allow her fear of the Giants or the political ramifications of aligning herself with such a dangerous group to deter her. In this, Olympia Maxime displayed the type of leadership that is often forgotten in the larger narrative of the war. Olympia's actions during the Second Wizarding War reflect the true nature of her character. She was not a mere bystander or a passive figure in the background. She was an active participant, using her resources, her knowledge, and her strength to combat the darkness that threatened to consume their world. Her decision to support Dumbledore was not just a political one, but a moral one. She understood the gravity of the situation, and she did not hesitate to put herself at risk for the sake of the greater good. While others may have seen her as a mere romantic interest for Hagrid, or as a token foreign representative at the Triwizard Tournament, Olympia was much more. She was a strong and capable leader, a vital member of the resistance against Voldemort. In the Triwizard Tournament, Olympia's role is often seen as one of ceremonial importance, as she serves as the head of the Beauxbatons delegation. She is dignified, poised, and elegant, qualities that are often attributed to her throughout the tournament. However, it is easy to overlook the significance of her role in this event. As the representative of her school, Olympia played an important part in maintaining the integrity of the competition. She was tasked with ensuring that the students from Beauxbatons were treated fairly and with respect, and she did so with the grace and composure that are characteristic of her leadership. Her presence at the tournament was not just about showing off her students' magical talents, but also about upholding the values of fairness, honor, and integrity. In a world where the lines between good and evil were often blurred, Olympia's steadfast adherence to these values was a rare and admirable trait. While her appearance in the Triwizard Tournament is often remembered for her dramatic entrance, it is important to note that Olympia was not just a figurehead. She was deeply involved in the workings of the event and had a strong sense of what was at stake. Her participation was not just a token gesture, but a deliberate action to ensure that the tournament proceeded as it should, despite the underlying tension and danger that threatened it. This subtle but significant contribution is often overlooked, but it speaks volumes about Olympia's character and her commitment to doing what was right, even when it was not easy. Number 14. Kreacher. Kreacher, the house elf who initially appears as an unpleasant character in Harry Potter, is often dismissed by readers as an irritable, unlikable creature. His first encounter with Harry Potter leaves a strong impression of disdain as he grumbles, insults, and behaves in a way that feels almost intentionally offensive. With his sharp tongue and bitter attitude, Kreacher seems to embody all that is disagreeable about house elves, reinforcing the stereotype that they are servile and petty. Yet over the course of the series, this character undergoes a profound transformation that reveals a deeper, tragic backstory, making Kreacher one of the most underrated and complex figures in the Harry Potter saga. In his earliest appearances, Kreacher is a source of irritation for Harry, Ron, and Hermione. He serves the Black family, and in his eyes, the magical world is divided into the pure-blood aristocracy and the lesser beings, muggles, muggleborns, and anyone who doesn't meet his warped standards. Kreacher's racism, based on his deeply ingrained loyalty to the Black family and its prejudiced views, is one of his most prominent characteristics. He calls Hermione the mudblood and is disdainful of her, echoing the same vile beliefs that his former masters, like Sirius's mother, held about blood purity. His entire demeanor is wrapped in bitterness and resentment, creating an aura of unpleasantness that even Harry and his friends struggle to tolerate. However, as we continue to read, it becomes evident that Creature is not just an obnoxious house elf. He is a tragic figure, shaped by years of mistreatment and neglect. It is important to understand that his bitterness stems from a long history of suffering. As a young elf, Creature was fiercely loyal to the Black family, especially Regulus Black, the younger brother of Sirius. Regulus's loyalty to his family was evident even before he became disillusioned with the Dark Lord, but the secret about the Horcruxes and Regulus's tragic end would remain buried in Creature's heart, locked away by his unwavering devotion. What Creature did in his service to Regulus and the Black family was not without personal pain. Regulus, despite his later defection from Voldemort's side, had been a fervent supporter of the Dark Lord for years, and Creature followed him loyally during that time. However, the young elf's devotion to Regulus would not save him from the eventual betrayal and death of his master. Regulus Black, who had once sought the truth about Voldemort's cruelty, died in the attempt to retrieve the locket Horcrux from the cursed cave, leaving Creature with a profound sense of loss. It was this moment that sealed Creature's painful transformation from a dedicated servant to a bitter, resentful figure. He was abandoned by his master, his life, purpose stripped away, and the only thing left for him was his duty to the Black family, which continued to treat him with disdain. When Harry first encounters Creature at number 12 Grimmauld Place, the house elf seems irredeemably obnoxious and hostile. But as the plot progresses, we are given glimpses of the tragic history that shapes Creature's character. His life was dominated by an unspoken grief for Regulus, and this grief manifested in his hate for those who seemed to represent the opposite of everything Regulus stood for. This is why Creature's initial attitude towards Harry and his friends seems so hard to forgive. They are reminders of everything that went wrong with Regulus's life and the broken ideals of the Black family. It is Harry's own growth as a person, his understanding of empathy, and his respect for Creature that begins to change the elf. At the beginning of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Creature is still bound by his past trauma. But when Harry recognizes Creature as suffering and treats him with respect, offering him the chance to act in a way that honors Regulus' sacrifice, something changes. Creature's transformation is not instantaneous, but it is profound. For the first time, the Creature is treated not as an inferior servant, but as a being with his own dignity and past. In return, Creature begins to change his attitude not only towards Harry, but also towards the other house elves. The elf who once cared only for the Black family now finds a new purpose, and his transformation becomes a key moment in the final battle at Hogwarts. When Creature leads the other house elves in the battle for Hogwarts, it is a testament to the profound impact that respect and kindness can have. Creature's previously hidden strength emerges as he proves to be not only loyal to Harry, but also brave and capable. He leads the house elves in fighting the Death Eaters and protecting the castle, a stark contrast to the fearful and begrudging elf who first appeared in earlier books. In this moment, Creature is no longer just a servant or a bitter relic of the past. He is a symbol of redemption, showing that even the most broken and oppressed individuals can find purpose and meaning when given the opportunity to rise above their circumstances. The moment when Creature, for the first time, addresses Harry with genuine gratitude, calling him a, quote, 21 with true respect, is one of the most poignant in the series. This change is a reflection of Harry's growth as a character. Harry's ability to look beyond Kreacher, his flaws, and see him as a tragic, loyal figure worthy of compassion is a testament to the importance of treating others with dignity, regardless of their past or their status in society. Harry did not just change Kreacher, he changed the entire dynamic of the house elf life. Kreacher's loyalty was never to the Black family, but to the idea of loyalty itself. When Harry treated him with the respect he had long been denied, Kreacher was finally able to find peace within himself. Number 15, Dean Thomas. In the world of Harry Potter, where heroes and villains often overshadow the quieter, more consistent characters, Dean Thomas stands as a prime example of the uncelebrated strength that is often overlooked. While Ron Weasley and Neville Longbottom frequently take the spotlight as Harry's closest allies, Dean's role is often understated, even though he embodies many of the qualities that are essential for the survival and triumph of their group. As a Muggle-born wizard who was forced into hiding during the rise of Voldemort's reign, Dean's character arc is one that demonstrates not the flash of heroic feats, but the enduring strength of steadfast loyalty, courage, and moral integrity. Dean Thomas' journey is defined by resilience. In a world where blood status often determines one's place, Dean's status as a Muggle-born meant that he constantly had to prove his worth, not just to others, but to himself. Unlike many of his peers who grew up within the magical world, Dean's entrance into Hogwarts was a daunting challenge. He had to learn an entirely new way of life, surrounded by others who had known magic all their lives. However, Dean never let this disparity hinder him. Instead of shrinking under the weight of prejudice, he found strength in his difference. Dean became known for his ability to navigate through the trials of Hogwarts with both kindness and humility. One of the key moments in Dean's journey is his unwavering commitment to his friends. He was part of the original Dumbledore's army, led by Harry Potter himself. Dean didn't hesitate to join this secret resistance group during their 5th year at Hogwarts, despite the danger it posed. While others might have been swayed by fear, Dean's determination to fight for what was right was steadfast. In the midst of the rising tide of terror brought by the Death Eaters, Dean's bravery often went unnoticed, but it was this quiet, constant resolve that allowed Dumbledore's army to survive and eventually thrive. Dean's loyalty extended beyond simple camaraderie. His relationships with Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Neville were based on a sense of shared purpose that wasn't dependent on heroism or accolades. Dean was never one to chase glory, nor did he seek recognition for his contributions. He was content to play his part, even when the world around him seemed to be falling apart. This was particularly evident in his relationship with Neville. Both shared a similar sense of uncertainty, yet both rose to the occasion when needed. They weren't driven by a desire for fame or accolades, but rather by a genuine desire to make a difference. Dean's role in the final battle at Hogwarts, although not as pronounced as Harry's or Ron's, was no less important. He stood firm, fighting for his beliefs, not because he sought recognition, but because he believed in the cause. The events of the Battle of Hogwarts offer a clear example of Dean's character. While others were preparing for the fight, Dean was one of the students who never hesitated to stand alongside his friends. It wasn't just the power of his spells or his ability to defend himself that made him a valuable ally, but his unshakable loyalty. Dean did not act out of a desire to prove himself, but because he knew it was the right thing to do. As the battle raged on with so many lives at stake, Dean's contribution was one of moral courage rather than tactical brilliance. He remained committed to the fight, standing side by side with his friends, a testament to the character of someone who did not need to be the hero to be essential to the cause. Throughout the narrative, Dean is not given the chance to display grand heroics in the same way that Harry or Ron do, yet it is clear that he is a figure of emotional resilience. Unlike Neville, whose growth is marked by significant moments of personal courage and triumph, or Ron, whose loyalty and courage shine through in heroic moments, Dean's growth is more subtle. He doesn't need a single defining moment to mark his courage. It, embedded in his character, his actions, and his constant presence in moments of adversity. Dean's ability to stay grounded, to stay true to his friends, and to do what is right, even when it isn't easy, is his greatest strength. Dean's background also plays a critical role in understanding his motivations. As a Muggle-born, he grew up with an awareness of both the magical and non-magical worlds. This made him unique among many of his classmates who had been raised entirely within the magical community. Dean's experiences as an outsider in the wizarding world gave him a deeper empathy for others who were marginalized or under threat. He never hesitated to stand up for those who were targeted, whether they were Muggle-borns, half-bloods, or even magical creatures. His inclusion in Dumbledore's army was not just about fighting the Dark Lord. It was about standing up for fairness, for equality, and for the right to live free from fear. There is also an important element of sacrifice in Dean's story. Like many other members of the Resistance, Dean was not spared the harsh realities of war. He, like others, had to leave the safety of Hogwarts and go into hiding, constantly on the move, always in danger. His decision to continue to fight despite the threat to his own life speaks to the core of his character. When the Dark Lord's forces took control of the Ministry and Hogwarts itself, Dean did not retreat. He joined the Order of the Phoenix and did his part in the fight against Voldemort's regime. His story is a testament to the idea that heroism is not always about grand gestures, but about the quiet, consistent choices one makes in the face of adversity. Number 16, Katie Bell. Katie Bell is a name often whispered in the halls of Hogwarts, mostly in the context of the Gryffindor Quidditch team. She is the courageous and determined chaser whose presence was essential to the team's success, but her story goes far beyond the broomstick and quaffle. Beneath the surface of a talented Quidditch player lies a student who showed immense bravery, loyalty, and resilience, qualities that defined her long after the Quidditch pitch had emptied. Katie's journey, however, was marred by an experience that would change her life forever. It was not a grand battle or a moment of fame, but a curse. In her 6th year, Katie became the victim of a cursed necklace, a powerful dark artifact placed in her path by Death Eaters. The incident occurred in Diagon Alley, a place of innocence and excitement for young witches and wizards, yet one where danger lurked in the shadows. Katie, unaware of the sinister object she was about to touch, became its victim when she accidentally put it around her neck. The pain was instantaneous, an agonizing torment that spread through her body. The curse was so intense that it left her unconscious and barely clinging to life. As she was rushed to the hospital wing, her friends, those who had always seen her as strong, confident, and lively, saw only a broken version of the young woman they had once known, Her body was racked with pain, and she was taken immediately to St. Mungo's Hospital for magical maladies and injuries, where she remained for an entire week. There, the full extent of the damage became apparent. Katie's injury was not just physical. The curse had robbed her of her memories, leaving her with a painful void in her mind. The trauma was not just in the physical scars, but in the lingering effects of the curse, which erased fragments of her identity. Yet despite this profound loss, Katie's spirit remained unbroken. She was no longer the same person who had breezed through Quidditch practices, but she was still the same person at her core, someone who believed in her friends, her school, and her team. Katie had lost her memory, but she had not lost her heart. The recovery process was long and challenging. The physical pain eventually faded, but the emotional toll took longer to heal. To be stripped of one's memory, to forget the very things that made you who you are, is an unimaginable hardship. Yet, Katie did not let herself fall into despair. She showed a level of bravery that was subtle, quiet, and powerful. She didn't seek attention or sympathy. Instead, she quietly worked to regain her footing. Katie's determination was a silent, steadfast rebellion against the darkness that sought to break her. While most students may have withdrawn into themselves or given up on the demands of school and life, Katie chose to keep moving forward. She returned to Hogwarts and rejoined her team, where her skills as a Quidditch player were immediately noticed once more. Despite her harrowing experience, Katie returned to the pitch with the same passion and determination. She demonstrated that courage does not always have to be loud and flamboyant. Sometimes, the greatest courage is simply showing up when it seems easiest to retreat. Katie Bell was a living testament to this. Her courage did not stop at the pitch either. In the final battle for Hogwarts, when darkness descended on the castle and the wizarding world was on the brink of collapse, Katie Bell was there. She fought for her friends, for her school, and for the values she had held dear, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. She stood shoulder to shoulder with those who had become her family over the years. In that battle, she was not just a player on the field, but a warrior in a much larger fight for the future. There is something deeply significant about Katie's journey. She faced one of the most terrifying experiences imaginable, a violent curse that could have easily shattered her will to live and erased her place in the world. Yet, Katie refused to let that happen. She didn't rise to fame or glory, but she found her strength in the quiet moments after the storm. Her bravery, though not always celebrated with fanfare, is a reminder that true courage often lies in persistence, in the decision to carry on despite overwhelming odds. Even more remarkable was the way in which Katie remained fiercely loyal to those around her. It's easy to be loyal when times are good, but Katie showed unwavering devotion when her friends and team needed her the most. She was the one who continued to cheer on her fellow Gryffindors, who offered support when others faltered, and who stood as a steadfast ally even when darkness loomed over the school. Katie Bell. As loyalty was not born of grand gestures, but from the simple, quiet act of standing firm when everything seemed to be falling apart. Katie's character speaks to a profound truth about strength and courage. They are not always displayed in dramatic moments of heroism. Instead, they often take the form of quiet resilience and steadfast loyalty. When Katie Bell stepped back onto the Quidditch field after her recovery, it wasn't just an act of athleticism, it was a declaration of her refusal to be defined by the dark forces that had tried to steal her life away. Her return to Hogwarts, her return to her friends and teammates, was a triumph of the spirit. Her story is one that is too often overlooked. In the sprawling narrative of the Harry Potter series, it is easy to miss the quiet victories of those who are not thrust into the spotlight. But Katie Bell, her story, reminds us of the unsung heroes who fought quietly and valiantly on the side of good. She was not the one who cast the final spell or struck down the enemy, but she was a part of the greater effort, a piece of the puzzle that made the final victory possible. Without people like Katie, those who choose to rise above the pain, to remain loyal and true, to continue the fight despite personal hardship, the ultimate victory could never have been achieved. In a world where the loudest voices often receive the most attention, it is the quiet ones who leave a lasting impact. Katie Bell's story is a tribute to those who fight in the shadows, whose courage is not found in their loud actions, but in their refusal to give up. Her bravery was not a flashy display, but a steady, persistent force that carried her through the darkest times. She proved that sometimes the most important victories are won in the moments when we decide to move forward despite the weight of the past. Katie Bell was not just a Quidditch player, she was a warrior, a symbol of quiet courage, and a reminder that even the smallest acts of bravery can have a profound impact on the world around us. Her story is one of resilience, loyalty, and a refusal to be defined by the darkness that sought to consume her. Katie's journey was not one of grandiose moments, but of quiet persistence in the face of overwhelming odds. It is a story that deserves to be remembered and celebrated. Number 17's Emmeline Vance. Emmeline Vance is a name that doesn't often make it to the forefront when discussing the key figures of the Harry Potter series. Her role is brief, and her character is almost fleeting in the grand narrative, but her absence is a glaring testament to her importance. Though she is mentioned only in passing, Emmeline Vance was one of the unsung heroes of the wizarding world, a member of the Order of the Phoenix whose death is felt deeply by those who knew her. It is her quiet, steadfast contributions, however, that made her such a vital part of the resistance against the Dark Lord forces. Her tragic end was a cruel reminder that the fight was not just waged by the famous and the powerful, but by the unsung heroes, those who worked in the shadows to ensure that Voldemort's reign would not last. Emmeline Vance's legacy lies not in the spotlight, but in the subtle, often unseen acts of bravery that she carried out for the cause. She was not a powerful wizard like Dumbledore, nor a famous figure like Harry, but she was a critical part of the Order. In fact, it is easy to forget that Emmeline was even a member at all. Her name appears among others on a list of Order members, but we know little about her actions, motivations, or how she impacted the course of the war. Yet when she died, it was clear that her loss was keenly felt by those who remained. Her death, tragically, is a reflection of the sacrifices made by so many who were not destined to be remembered in history books. Emmeline's place in the Order of the Phoenix was not as a central leader, but rather as one of the quiet warriors, the kind whose contributions are not immediately recognized, but are absolutely essential. She fought in the background, and it was these very figures who often carried the most significant weight in times of war. The story of the battle against Voldemort is not solely about Harry, Hermione, and Ron. It is about everyone who fought in any way, shape, or form. Emmeline Vance may not have had a central role in the battle for Hogwarts, but she was part of the larger network of resistance that made that victory possible. Her death is perhaps the clearest sign of her importance. Emmeline Vance was murdered by Death Eaters during the First War, an unfortunate but inevitable consequence of the resistance fight against Voldemort. Her death, like the deaths of so many others, was brutal and unjust, but it was a sacrifice that allowed others to keep fighting. It is a reminder that war is not fought by those who are destined for greatness, but by those who are willing to lay down their lives for a cause greater than themselves. Emmeline, its death stands as a reminder of the sacrifices made by the ordinary individuals who helped bring about the fall of the Dark Lord. What makes Emmeline's sacrifice even more poignant is that she was one of the Order members that Dumbledore himself mourned. He did not simply acknowledge her death, he recognized its impact. In, quote, 30, when Dumbledore speaks about the loss of a member of the Order, it is clear that Emmeline's passing was not a small thing. Her death was not a mere footnote in the larger struggle against Voldemort. It was a blow to the heart of the resistance. Dumbledore himself, the most powerful wizard in the world, saw the weight of her sacrifice, and he did not treat it lightly. This was no small matter, and it speaks volumes about the kind of person Emmeline was. While we may never know the full extent of Emmeline's contribution to the Order, we can infer a great deal from the way her death was mourned. Emmeline was more than just a name on a list. She was a vital force, even if she never gained the recognition she deserved. Her death at the hands of Voldemort's followers is a stark reminder that the fight against evil is not just waged by those with the loudest voices or the most powerful wands, but by everyone who is willing to take a stand. The fact that Emmeline, his name is rarely spoken, is not a sign of her insignificance, but rather a sign of the humble nature of the work she did. There is a kind of quiet heroism in Emmeline's story. She did not seek the spotlight, nor did she demand recognition. She worked tirelessly behind the scenes, knowing that the battle she fought was not one that would end with her name being written in the history books. But her contributions were no less important. Without people like her, the Order would not have been able to accomplish what it did. Emmeline's work may have gone unnoticed by many, but it was crucial to the success of the resistance. She may not have been the hero that everyone remembers, but she was the kind of hero that the fight needed. In many ways, Emmeline's death represents the greater tragedy of war. The loss of lives that are not acknowledged, the sacrifices that are made without fanfare. Throughout the Harry Potter series, we see the stories of the great heroes, Harry, Hermione, and Ron, and we hear of the legendary figures like Dumbledore and Snape. But it is important to remember that these stories are just one part of the larger narrative. There are countless other characters like Emmeline whose lives and deaths were just as significant, even if they were never given the spotlight. It is the quiet strength of these characters that makes the ultimate victory possible. Her name might never be remembered by most, but the people who knew her understood the true value of her contributions. Emmeline's role in the Order was not defined by grand gestures or heroic speeches. She did not need to be at the front lines to make a difference. She fought in the way that was needed, quietly, without seeking recognition, but with a fierce determination that made her an integral part of the order, says Fight. This kind of heroism is often overlooked in the grand scheme of things, but it is no less important. The story of Emmeline Vance is one of the many untold stories in the Harry Potter universe. It is a reminder that the battle against evil was fought by more than just the famous heroes we know. It was fought by countless individuals, many of whom will never be remembered, but whose contributions were crucial to the ultimate victory. Emmeline's life, though brief in the narrative, is a testament to the quiet warriors who helped bring about the downfall of Voldemort. Her story is a reminder that the fight for good is not always fought by those in the spotlight, but by those whose names are whispered only in the most sacred corners of history. As the war against Voldemort raged on, it was figures like Emmeline Vance who kept the resistance alive. Though she was not a central figure in the story of Harry Potter, her actions were no less critical to the cause. Her death was a reminder that the battle was far from over, but it was also a testament to the strength of those who fought, no matter how small their part, in the larger struggle. In a world where heroes are often measured by their fame, it is important to remember that true heroism is often quiet, humble, and uncelebrated. Emmeline Vance was one of those unsung heroes, and her legacy lives on in the victory that she helped make possible. Number 18, Astoria Greengrass. Astoria Greengrass, the wife of Draco Malfoy, is a character often overlooked in the world of Harry Potter. While she is only briefly mentioned in the books, her presence is far more influential than many realize. As a key figure in Draco's life, Astoria is one of the quiet architects of his transformation from a boy immersed in the darkness of pure-blood elitism to a man trying to distance himself from the shadows of his past. Her character, though largely unexplored in the canonical texts, reveals a great deal about the subtle but profound changes that can happen when one chooses love over ideology, understanding over hatred, and family over tradition. Astoria, his role in Draco, its life, particularly after the events of the Second Wizarding War, is not to be underestimated. Draco, a boy raised in the Malfoy family with a strict adherence to blood purity and the ideals of the Death Eaters, marries Astoria despite her being far from the ideal pure-blood witch that many in his world would have expected. This decision alone speaks volumes about Draco's internal shift. Astoria, in many ways, becomes his anchor, helping him navigate the post-war world and slowly steering him away from the prejudices he was raised with. The very fact that she married him, knowing his past and the scrutiny she would face from the purest factions of the wizarding world, reveals a bravery and independence of mind that mirrors the quiet revolutionary nature of her character. Unlike Draco, who was bound by family legacy and social expectations, Astoria Greengrass was not a traditional pureblood witch. She rejected the divisive ideology of blood purity, an act that alienated her from many in her own social circles. While the Greengrass family, though not as powerful or as infamous as the Malfoys, was considered a respectable house, Astoria's refusal to abide by the typical pureblood dogma set her apart from her peers. This rejection of pureblood supremacy is significant not only because it marked her as a social outcast, but also because it allowed her to see the world differently, through a lens of compassion and fairness that was far removed from the elitism that had poisoned her peers. Astoria His decision to marry Draco Malfoy, despite the weight of his past and the stigma attached to his family, speaks to the depth of her character. She did not see Draco as a mere extension of his family, his beliefs, or his past mistakes. She saw him for who he was becoming, not who he had been. This foresight, this ability to look beyond the shadows of the past, was key to her role in his transformation. Draco, who had once been arrogant and dismissive of the values Harry Potter and his friends held dear, found in Astoria someone who challenged him to be better. She was not just a wife to him, she was a partner who guided him to understand the importance of change and the need for acceptance. Astoria, his influence extended beyond Draco, however. Their son, Scorpius, was raised with values that were starkly different from those Draco had been taught as a child. Draco and Astoria together worked to raise their son in an environment of tolerance, free from the harsh prejudices that had shaped Draco's early life. Astoria's rejection of the back-to-blood purity ideology was evident in the way she and Draco chose to raise Scorpius. They taught him that kindness, compassion, and understanding were more important than heritage or bloodlines. Scorpius was not raised to view the world through the narrow and often oppressive lens of pureblood supremacy. Instead, he grew up in a household where equality and fairness were the guiding principles. This approach to parenting was revolutionary in its own quiet way. In a world where blood status and family lineage had long been the defining factors in a wizard's life, Astoria, his insistence on raising Scorpius differently was nothing short of subversive. Her influence helped shape Scorpius into a young man who would not make the same mistakes as his father, who would not carry the weight of his family as past like a burden. In fact, Scorpius was one of the few young wizards who rejected the old prejudices and learned to embrace people from all walks of life. His friendships at Hogwarts, particularly with Albus Potter, spoke volumes about the way he had been raised. They showed a willingness to bridge gaps and build relationships that transcended the divisions of the past. Astoria, his philosophy was not simply about rejecting the old ways, but about actively creating a new kind of family dynamic, one that was based on understanding, love, and inclusivity. She wanted to ensure that Scorpius, as well as herself and Draco, were not burdened by the mistakes of previous generations. This desire to break free from the past, to leave behind the toxic ideologies that had once ruled their lives, is one of the most radical aspects of Astoria as character. Her decision to create a family that rejected the values of the Dark Lord and the Death Eaters was, in its own way, a kind of revolution. Astoria's influence on Draco and their family was also reflected in the way she handled the challenges of her own life. It's mentioned that Astoria was frail and suffered from a mysterious illness, a detail that adds another layer of depth to her character. In the face of illness, Astoria remained strong and focused on what was truly important, her family and the future. Her illness, which ultimately led to her early death, can be seen as a metaphor for the way she lived her life, quietly, yet with immense strength and purpose. Despite the hardship she faced, Astoria never wavered in her commitment to her family, his future. She gave Draco and Scorpius the gift of a better world, one in which they could be free from the shadows of the past. In a world filled with powerful wizards and witches, where greatness is often defined by feats of magic and bravery, Astoria Greengrass stands as a reminder that true strength often lies in the quiet, everyday choices that shape a life. Her decision to marry Draco, to reject the ideology of blood purity, and to raise a son with values that would counter the darkness of the past speaks volumes about the power of individual actions. Sometimes the most radical revolution is not one of grand gestures, but of small, consistent acts of defiance against the status quo. Astoria Greengrass as legacy is felt not through grand battles or magical achievements, but through the lives she touched. Most importantly, the life of Draco Malfoy. Her love and strength helped him find a path out of the darkness that had defined his youth. Her choice to live a life based on acceptance, tolerance, and kindness changed the course of her family, his history, and, in doing so, helped pave the way for a better future. In the grand narrative of the Harry Potter series, Astoria may be a secondary character, but her role is essential in showing that true transformation often begins within the home with the quiet, revolutionary power of family. Number 19, Hestia Jones. Hestia Jones was a character who played a subtle yet significant role in the wizarding world, particularly in the fight against the Dark Lord, though her contribution to the story of Harry Potter is often overlooked. Her courage, loyalty, and unshakable moral compass earned her a rightful place in the heart of the Order of the Phoenix. It is easy to overlook Hestia, especially when she is surrounded by more prominent figures like Harry, Hermione, and Ron. However, her actions reveal a deeply admirable and selfless nature that deserves much more recognition. Hestia's strength lies not in grand gestures, but in quiet acts of bravery, unwavering loyalty, and the willingness to risk everything for the greater good. Hestia first came into focus when she joined the Order of the Phoenix during its second incarnation. She was entrusted with one of the most dangerous tasks, helping to protect Harry Potter during a critical point in the war. When it was time for Harry to leave the Dursleys' house on Privet Drive and move to a safer location, Hestia, along with several other members of the Order, accompanied him. In one of the most tense moments in the series, Harry had to leave under the cover of darkness, with Death Eaters lurking in the shadows, always a threat to the safety of the boy who lived. Despite the looming danger, Hestia remained steadfast in her mission, placing herself directly in harm as way to ensure Harry's safety. Her actions were not driven by any desire for glory or recognition, but by a deep sense of duty and a personal conviction that this fight was worth every sacrifice. As part of the mission to move Harry safely from the Dursleys' home to number 12 Grimmauld Place, Hestia demonstrated not only courage, but a deep care for those around her. She was part of the group of Order members who set up the protective enchantments and guarded Harry during the perilous journey. The challenge they faced was immense. Death Eaters were relentlessly hunting Harry, and every moment they spent on the move could be their last. Hestia's bravery was a quiet force, one that helped to hold the group together and ensure that Harry arrived safely. While the story often focuses on the larger, more public displays of heroism, it is characters like Hestia who work tirelessly behind the scenes that provide the backbone for the success of the Resistance. Throughout the series, Hestia's humility and lack of desire for personal recognition set her apart from many of the more self-aggrandizing figures in the wizarding world. When Harry and his friends arrive at the Tonks family home, Hestia shows a deep respect for the Weasley family, acknowledging their sacrifices in the fight against Voldemort. In the atmosphere of the house, she refers to them as heroes, a simple yet powerful statement that reflects her genuine admiration for their dedication to the cause, In a world filled with people who often seek recognition or fame, Hestia's ability to honor others without seeking the spotlight herself speaks to the kind of person she truly was. Her quiet respect for the Weasleys was not just a passing compliment, but a testament to her understanding of what true heroism looked like, the willingness to fight for something greater than oneself, even when no one is watching. Despite the risks involved in being part of the Order, Hestia never hesitated to stand up for what was right. She was one of the many unsung heroes of the battle against Voldemort's regime. Her bravery and steadfastness were especially evident during the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, where she fought with the other members of the Order to protect the prophecy that held the key to defeating Voldemort. Though Hestia's presence during this battle is less highlighted in comparison to other characters, her courage in the face of overwhelming danger was no less significant. She was there alongside other key figures such as Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, and Tonks, standing tall in the face of evil. It is often said that the true measure of a hero is not in how they face victory, but in how they face defeat. In Hestia's case, it is not her outward victories that define her, but the quiet strength she exhibited in every moment of adversity. While she may not have been the one to deliver the final blow to Voldemort, she played an essential part in the larger fight, providing both moral and physical support to the battle against the Dark Lord as forces. Her strength was shown not in the loud, heroic actions we often associate with victory, but in the quiet and unwavering resolve to never give up, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Throughout the series, the Order of the Phoenix was a group built on mutual trust, loyalty, and a shared desire to rid the wizarding world of the darkness that Voldemort had brought. Hestia embodied these values fully, never once wavering in her commitment to the cause. She did not seek personal glory or recognition for her actions. Instead, her sense of duty was guided by a moral compass that always pointed toward the greater good. In a world filled with complicated choices and morally ambiguous situations, Hestia's clarity of purpose stands out. She knew exactly what needed to be done and committed herself fully to that task, no matter the personal cost. In the aftermath of the war, when Voldemort was finally defeated and the wizarding world began to rebuild, Hestia's contributions, like many others, went largely unnoticed by the general public. The heroes of the war, those who faced down Voldemort in epic battles, were the ones who received the fame and recognition. But Hestia's quiet sacrifice and her unwavering commitment to the cause were just as important as those who had made the headlines. She fought not for fame or recognition, but because she believed in something bigger than herself. In this sense, Hestia embodies the true nature of a hero, someone who does what is necessary, not for personal gain, but because it is the right thing to do. Hestia's actions are a reminder that heroism often comes in the form of small, seemingly insignificant acts. In a world where heroes are often defined by grand gestures or the ability to defeat powerful enemies, it is easy to forget that true bravery is sometimes found in quiet moments of sacrifice, where the stakes are not as clear-cut. Hestia's role in Harry's protection and her unwavering loyalty to the Order of the Phoenix demonstrate that courage does not always need to be flashy or loud to be powerful. In the end, Hestia Jones may not have had the most prominent role in the Harry Potter series, but Her contributions to the fight against Voldemort should not be underestimated. Her bravery, humility, and moral integrity made her an essential part of the Order of the Phoenix. She exemplifies the idea that heroism is not just about defeating dark wizards, but about standing up for what is right, even in the face of overwhelming odds. In a world that often values fame and glory, Hestia's quiet strength serves as a reminder that the true measure of a hero lies not in the recognition they receive, but in the selflessness and integrity with which they live their lives. Her role in the war, though often overlooked, was no less important than those who stood in the spotlight. Number 20. Peeves. In the world of Harry Potter, there is a character whose importance has often been overshadowed by the more prominent figures in the story. His name is Peeves, the mischievous poltergeist who is both feared and loathed by the students and staff of Hogwarts. While Peeves may seem like nothing more than a troublemaker, his role in the magical world is far more significant than most fans realize. Peeves is not just a prankster. He is a symbol of the chaotic, unpredictable spirit that runs through Hogwarts itself. His exclusion from the Harry Potter films is a missed opportunity, one that diminishes the true essence of Hogwarts and its fight against the darkness that threatens it. For Peeves, though, the most remarkable part of his story is how, when the time came, he chose to fight on the side of good. Peeves is not a typical ghost. Unlike the souls that haunt Hogwarts, he is a poltergeist, an entity that thrives on mischief, destruction, and the chaos of the living world. He is an embodiment of disorder and rebellion, a force of nature that neither the students nor the teachers can control. His pranks are infamous throughout the school, chalk thrown across classrooms, water balloons hurled at unsuspecting students, and mysterious bursts of laughter echoing through the halls. Peeves doesn't simply break the rules, he embodies the very spirit of anarchy. Yet, as chaotic as he is, Peeves is undeniably a part of Hogwarts, and there is something uniquely fitting about his presence within its ancient walls. Hogwarts itself, a place of magic and mystery, is not without its own unpredictability, and Peeves represents that raw, untamed aspect of the school's life. Despite the fear and annoyance he causes, Peeves has an undeniable connection to the heart of the school. His antics are often a reflection of the many untold stories that linger within Hogwarts history. From the students to the staff, everyone is affected by his presence, whether they like it or not. But while Peeves causes trouble, he also has a deeper understanding of the school than anyone might think. He knows its secrets, its rooms, its hidden places. For him, the school is more than just a building. It is a living, breathing entity, one that he has spent centuries disturbing and entertaining. His chaos is the very pulse of Hogwarts, and in some ways, it is what makes the school truly alive. The moment that Peeves's character truly begins to take on a deeper significance is during the final battle at Hogwarts. This is when he goes from being an annoying nuisance to an unlikely hero. As the dark forces of Voldemort descend upon the school, the students and teachers brace for the worst. It is in this moment of crisis that Professor McGonagall, who has long struggled with Peeves's antics, gives him a simple but powerful order. Show them what a poltergeist can do. This moment is a turning point for Peeves, as it reveals something crucial about his character. He is capable of more than just causing mischief. He has the potential to be a force of good, one that can stand up to the forces of darkness despite his chaotic nature. At first, it might seem absurd to think of Peeves as a hero. After all, he has spent years making life at Hogwarts miserable for everyone, and his antics have caused countless headaches for both students and staff. But the true magic of Peeves lies in the fact that when called upon, he chooses to fight for the school he has always haunted. Peeves' decision to join the battle is a testament to the idea that even the most anarchic forces can be harnessed for good. In this moment, Peeves transcends his role as a mere troublemaker and becomes a symbol of resistance against tyranny and darkness. His chaotic nature, which was once a source of frustration, now becomes a weapon against the very forces that threaten Hogwarts. The role that Peeves plays in the final battle may seem small compared to the bravery of the main characters like Harry, Hermione, and Ron. However, his actions are deeply significant. When the time comes to defend the school, Peeves doesn't hesitate. He may not fight in the traditional sense, but his chaotic presence becomes an asset to the students and teachers who are desperately trying to hold the line against Voldemort's forces. His actions disrupt the enemy, causing confusion and disarray, and in the process, he helps to create the opening that allows the forces of good to push back. His contribution is subtle but crucial. Peeves may not have been part of the main battle, but his impact is felt all the same. One of the most remarkable aspects of Peeves' character is how he evolves throughout the series. Initially, he is nothing more than a nuisance, a source of annoyance to the students, and a headache for the staff. He is an unpredictable force that seems to serve no purpose other than to create havoc. Yet, as the series progresses, Peeves is revealed to be more than just a prankster. His actions, while often disruptive, show that he has a deeper understanding of Hogwarts and its inhabitants. He becomes, in many ways, a reflection of the school itself, a place of magic, mystery, and, at times, chaos. Peeves' transformation from a troublemaker to a hero is a testament to the idea that everyone, no matter how flawed or chaotic, has the potential for redemption. What makes Peeves' role in the final battle even more poignant is the fact that he is one of the few characters who is not bound by the traditional notions of good and evil. He is neither a hero in the classic sense nor a villain. Instead, he is a force that exists outside of those definitions, operating according to his own set of rules. This makes his decision to fight on the side of Hogwarts all the more meaningful. Peeves is not motivated by a desire for glory or fame, nor does he seek redemption. He fights because it is the right thing to do, and because he has come to realize that Hogwarts is more than just a place for him to cause trouble. It is home. Peeves' actions also highlight the theme of loyalty and what it means to stand up for something greater than oneself. While many of the characters in the series are defined by their loyalty to friends, family, or ideals, Peeves' loyalty lies with Hogwarts itself. He may not show it in the same way as the other characters, but his commitment to the school is evident in the way he fights to protect it. In many ways, Peeves represents the idea that loyalty is not always about following the rules or adhering to conventional standards. Sometimes, loyalty is about standing up for what matters, even if it means going against one's own nature. Peeves' story is one of transformation, growth, and the realization that even the most unpredictable and chaotic forces can contribute to something greater. In the end, Peeves is a character who proves that it is not our flaws or imperfections that define us, but how we choose to use them. While he may have started as a mischievous poltergeist, he ends up as a symbol of the unpredictable and often messy nature of the battle between good and evil. And in that sense, Peeves is as much a part of the story of Hogwarts as any of the other characters who fought to protect it. His choice to fight for the school, despite his chaotic nature, is a reminder that even the most unlikely hero can make a difference when the time comes. Number 21, Lee Jordan. In the magical world of Harry Potter, certain characters stand out because of their bravery, intelligence, or moral compass. However, among them, there is one whose true worth has often been overlooked, Lee Jordan. Most readers remember Lee as the charismatic Quidditch commentator, always ready with a witty remark or a burst of excitement during the matches. He was the voice of the Gryffindor team, a jovial and energetic companion to Fred and George Weasley. His humour and infectious energy made him a fan favourite during the series, but his true character was so much more than just a prankster. During the rise of the Second Wizarding War, when Voldemort's terror gripped the wizarding world, Lee's role transformed drastically. Far from just a commentator or the light-hearted figure he appeared to be, Lee became a symbol of resistance, hope, and courage. In the darkest of times, he used his voice for a much greater purpose. Lee created quote 44, an underground radio station that became the only source of truth amidst the fear, lies, and repression spreading throughout the magical world. It was his way of fighting back. He wasn't just broadcasting entertainment or trivial banter. He was risking his life to speak truth to those who had lost hope. Lee Jordan's journey as a revolutionary figure in this period was as brave as it was significant. He didn't have the profile of Harry Potter, the boy who lived, or Hermione Granger, the brilliant mind who always had a solution. Yet, Lee's contributions were just as vital to the resistance. He understood that the power of words could be a weapon more formidable than any wand. With his microphone as his tool, he gave voice to the voiceless, told the stories that needed to be heard, and uplifted those who had fallen under the weight of terror. It was no easy task to create and maintain a resistance radio station in the middle of a war where the Ministry of Magic, under the influence of Death Eaters, sought to control all forms of communication. The propaganda machine was in full swing, and anyone who opposed it faced severe punishment. But Lee didn't flinch. As Fred and George's close friend, Lee had already shown a penchant for standing against the status quo, often mocking authority and pushing boundaries with his humour. But now the stakes were higher. His broadcasts were a beacon for those who refused to bow to fear, providing crucial information about the happenings in the wizarding world, especially regarding the events at Hogwarts, the state of the Order of the Phoenix, and the movements of the Death Eaters. Lee Jordan's courage, however, extended beyond just the broadcast. Every time he stepped into the makeshift studio, he was at risk of discovery. Voldemort's followers had infiltrated every corner of society, and with their grasp tightening, being found out meant death. Yet Lee continued, knowing that he wasn't just playing a part in a fight for survival, he was playing a part in a fight for the soul of the wizarding world. He wasn't only broadcasting to inspire courage, he was also protecting the future of the magical community. It was no small feat. The wizarding world was under siege, and Lee became one of the few voices left telling the truth, however dangerous it was to do so. His broadcasts were filled with hope, but also with the kind of courage that was necessary to rally people together. Lee Jordan was never one to hide from a fight, and as the war intensified, his resolve only grew stronger. The stories he told on his radio were not just tales of resistance. They were a direct challenge to the lies being spread by Voldemort and his followers. With every broadcast, he was undermining the Ministry's attempts to manipulate the public and the Death Eaters' efforts to instill fear. The fact that Lee's radio station survived at all speaks volumes about his determination and resilience. He was operating under extreme pressure, and yet, unlike many others, he did not buckle under the weight of it. Lee showed the world what it meant to fight for a cause with everything you had, even if it meant sacrificing your safety, your peace, and your comfort. Through his broadcasts, Lee didn't just report news. He instilled belief, courage, and the will to keep fighting. When the world seemed like it was on the brink of collapse, Lee Jordan's voice reminded the people of the magic that still existed in unity and resistance. Lee's true heroism was not in the grand gestures, but in the quiet acts of defiance that occurred in the secrecy of the night. He didn't need a wand to create change. All he needed was his voice, and with it, he built something far more enduring than any spell could accomplish. His actions during the war provide a crucial lesson in the power of communication, the importance of standing up in times of crisis, and the unwavering belief in a cause, even when the world is telling you to be quiet. In the end, Lee Jordan's contributions to the resistance cannot be overstated. He was not just a commentator, he was a beacon of hope in the face of overwhelming darkness. His role, however, did not get the attention it deserved. Like many other unsung heroes of the war, Lee's story often remained in the shadows. He was not a leader in the traditional sense, nor was he the face of the resistance. But in truth, his courage was just as significant as any other. It was through individuals like Lee that the fight for freedom continued when all seemed lost. Lee's work reminded the wizarding world that even in the darkest times, those with the courage to speak up, to share the truth, and to spread hope were the true champions. Perhaps if the war had ended differently, Lee Jordan's name might have been spoken in the same breath as those of Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, and Ron Weasley. But even without the recognition, his bravery is undeniable. He never sought the spotlight, and his motives were not driven by fame or glory. Lee fought because it was the right thing to do, and he fought in the way he knew best, through his voice, through his words, and through his unwavering belief in the cause. Lee Jordan's story is a poignant reminder that heroism comes in many forms. It is not always about defeating the villain or wielding the most powerful wand. Sometimes heroism is about using the resources you have, even if they seem small, to make a difference. Lee didn't need to be at the front lines with a sword or a broomstick. He was a hero simply by choosing to speak the truth when so many others were silenced. It is easy to overlook the quiet heroes in stories like Harry Potter's. We are often drawn to the brave actions of the obvious heroes, the ones who are always in the spotlight. But characters like Lee Jordan show us that true heroism is not always about grand gestures. Sometimes the most important contributions are the ones made behind the scenes, quietly, with determination and sacrifice. Lee Jordan's legacy is one of courage, integrity, and unwavering support for the cause of good. His role as the voice of the resistance serves as a powerful testament to the influence of media and communication during times of conflict. His broadcasts were not just a source of information, they were a source of hope, a reminder that no matter how dark the world becomes, there is always the possibility of resistance. It's a shame that Lee Jordan's story has not been more widely celebrated, but in the hearts of those who heard his broadcasts, his legacy lives on as one of the true unsung heroes of the Second Wizarding War. Number 22, Pansy Parkinson. Pansy Parkinson is often regarded as one of the quintessential antagonists in the Harry Potter series, a character who serves as a foil to the brave and virtuous protagonists. At first glance, she fits the stereotype of the unpleasant, sneering Slytherin student, filled with a venomous disdain for those she deems beneath her. Her sharp words and disdainful attitude, particularly toward Harry and Hermione, seem to cement her role as a typical schoolyard villain. Yet a closer look reveals that Pansy is much more than the shallow antagonist she initially appears to be. In many ways, she is a product of the environment in which she was raised, a child of a pure-blood family steeped in old ideologies and prejudices. This background doesn't excuse her actions, but it does provide a complex and heartbreaking context for her behavior. Pansy Parkinson's life was shaped by the values of pure-blood wizarding society, a society that revered blood purity and cultivated an atmosphere of intolerance. From the very first time she appears in The Philosopher's Stone, Pansy is positioned as a member of this elite group, aligned with Draco Malfoy and his disdain for those of non-pure blood. She sneers at Hermione for being Muggle-born, demonstrating her early adoption of the prejudices ingrained in her upbringing. The atmosphere of Hogwarts, with its distinct divide between Slytherin and Gryffindor, serves as the perfect stage for her antagonistic tendencies to flourish. Her behavior toward Harry and Hermione, particularly her outright hatred of the latter, is a reflection of the intense indoctrination she received at home. What is often overlooked, however, is that Pansy's cruelty is not a simple matter of personal malice, but a byproduct of the system that raised her. The pure-blood culture she is part of teaches superiority, encouraging an unshakable belief in the innate value of blood over merit or character. In this environment, there is no room for compassion or understanding. Children like Pansy are groomed to despise anything that deviates from their rigid worldview. Her attitude toward Hermione and Harry is not merely an act of personal vendetta, but an outward manifestation of the toxic values she has internalized. Pansy doesn't know any better, nor is she given the opportunity to question the assumptions that have been drilled into her. Her cruelty is a shield, a defense mechanism against the insecurities and fears she faces as a product of an oppressive ideology. Pansy's role as a product of her environment is further emphasized in The Half-Blood Prince. Here, her character is shown as being far more than just a bitter enemy to Harry and his friends. While she continues to mock and belittle others, especially those of Muggle descent, her actions begin to reveal deeper layers of vulnerability. When Draco Malfoy is tasked with a mission by Voldemort that he is terrified to carry out, Pansy's behavior becomes more erratic, and her loyalty to her house and family starts to clash with her own fears. It is here that Pansy's role as a character, caught in the web of a morally corrupt system, becomes more apparent. Her harsh exterior crumbles, exposing the human being behind the rigid facade of pure-blood superiority. Perhaps the most telling moment of Pansy's vulnerability comes during the Battle of Hogwarts. As the final battle looms, Pansy, like many of her Slytherin peers, is caught in the midst of an ideological struggle. Throughout the series, Pansy is shown to have an intense fear of failure and punishment, as is evident when she tries to distance herself from the fighting in the final moments of the Deathly Hallows. At the height of the battle, Pansy's fear becomes palpable. In her desperation, she cries out for the safety of her house and family, abandoning the facade of superiority for the raw instinct of self-preservation. This is not the action of a villain reveling in the chaos of battle, but a frightened young woman clinging to any semblance of safety in a world that is crumbling around her. Pansy's behavior in this moment is a reflection of the deep fear and insecurity that stem from growing up in a world where purity and bloodlines determine worth. Her desire for safety and survival is not just a sign of cowardice, but an act of desperation. She is a product of a system that has taught her to fear anyone who does not fit the mold of the pure blood ideal. And now, as the world crumbles, she is left with nothing but her own primal instincts. There is no greater enemy in Pansy's world than the threat to her identity and the collapse of everything she has been taught to believe in. The world she grew up in has no room for personal growth or redemption. It is a world that rewards conformity and punishes deviation. In this context, Pansy's fear is not a sign of moral weakness, but rather a tragic reflection of the poisonous ideology that shaped her. At her core, Pansy is a character defined not by her malice or cruelty, but by the fear that arises from living in a world built on hatred and division. She does not possess the same level of personal growth or redemption that some of the other characters, such as Draco Malfoy, experience, but she is far from being a simple villain. Her story is one of tragedy, a reflection of a generation of children who were raised to hate, to fear, and to fight for a false sense of superiority. Pansy, as humanity, is revealed in moments of fear when she is forced to confront the crumbling ideals of the world she once held dear. These moments serve to remind us that beneath the mask of cruelty and arrogance, Pansy is a human being, shaped by the very same forces that shape so many others in the wizarding world. In many ways, Pansy represents the collateral damage of the war between Voldemort and Harry, a victim of a system that sought to divide and conquer. Her refusal to question the dogma of her upbringing makes her a mirror image of the system that created her. Like so many others who were raised in the pure blood tradition, Pansy never had the opportunity to challenge her beliefs or see the world from a different perspective. It is not until the final moments of the series as she cowers in fear during the Battle of Hogwarts that the full extent of her inner turmoil becomes apparent. Her survival instinct is a desperate cry for help from a society that has failed her, a cry that echoes the pain of every child who has been raised to believe in a world that is inherently unfair and divisive. Despite her flaws and her unlikable qualities, Pansy Parkinson remains one of the most compelling and tragic characters in the Harry Potter series. She is not a straightforward villain, but rather a complex figure who is shaped by the forces around her. Her fear, her cruelty, and her vulnerability are all products of a system that values blood over merit, and in the end, she is left to navigate a world that no longer has a place for her narrow beliefs. Pansy is not a hero, but in her moments of vulnerability, she is more real than many of the other characters in the series. She may not have found redemption, but she remains a powerful symbol of the damage that ideology and fear can inflict on a person and on a society as a whole. Number 23, Irma Pince. Irma Pince was a character in the Harry Potter series who, despite her relatively minor role, carried a heavy burden. Her presence in Hogwarts was both undeniable and subtly authoritative, a quiet but significant figure who ensured the smooth running of the magical institution. The Hogwarts librarian was more than just a gatekeeper of books and knowledge. She was a custodian of the school, its history, and its hidden secrets. With her sharp, unapproachable demeanour and her strict enforcement of library rules, Pince might have appeared as a mere background figure, often overlooked in the larger narrative. However, a closer examination of her role reveals a character whose contributions to the daily life at Hogwarts were invaluable, though largely unnoticed. The library, in many ways, is the heart of Hogwarts. It holds not only books, but the potential for limitless knowledge and discovery. This responsibility rests squarely on Irma Pince's shoulders. She wasn't just a librarian, she was a gatekeeper of magical wisdom, a protector of the school's most dangerous and arcane secrets. Behind her often stern appearance, there was a sense of dedication to her work that many students, including Hermione Granger, were reluctant to challenge. Hermione, known for her thirst for knowledge, would often hesitate to take books from the library, not because of her usual enthusiasm for studying, but because of the sheer authority Pince wielded over the sacred space. Pince was feared not out of malice but out of respect for her deep understanding of the importance of safeguarding magical knowledge. In fact, Pince was the keeper of one of the most mysterious and dangerous parts of the library, the restricted section. This was a part of Hogwarts that was both forbidden and tantalizing, filled with books containing dark magic, dangerous spells, and ancient knowledge that the average student could not be trusted with. The books in the restricted section were locked away, and Pince's job was to ensure that no student, not even one as brilliant as Hermione, could easily gain access. The very fact that she had this responsibility suggested that she was not just a librarian, but a figure of great authority at Hogwarts, a guardian of its darkest secrets. The forbidden section wasn't just a place where students could gain forbidden knowledge, it was a place that held the potential for chaos. If one were to consider what would happen if the wrong person got their hands on a book from that section, the consequences could be catastrophic. And yet Pince's stern and seemingly unyielding attitude towards the students, while abrasive, was not without purpose. She knew exactly what the books in that section were capable of, and she knew that some knowledge was too dangerous to be freely disseminated. In this, she was much like Madame Pomfrey, who, though also not directly involved in the school's battles or grand adventures, provided an essential and stabilizing force within the Hogwarts community. Pince ensured the routines and rules of Hogwarts were upheld, and that the flow of knowledge remained in the right hands. Irma Pince's role in the school's structure may have appeared to be administrative, but it was, in reality, far more pivotal. In the wizarding world, knowledge was power, and Pince had a level of control over this power that many other characters did not. She kept a watchful eye over the books, the students, and the magical history that the school preserved. Her job wasn't simply to ensure that books were in their proper places, it was to manage the very potential of magic itself. She was aware of the dangers lurking within the pages of those ancient tomes, and she took her role in guarding those secrets seriously. While characters like Harry, Hermione, and Ron were out in the thick of battles, fighting dark wizards and discovering ancient artifacts, Pince was quietly maintaining the safety of the school in her own way. The lives of the students and the safety of the magical world often depended on these seemingly minor roles. It was easy to overlook the importance of Pince, but in reality she was the unsung hero of Hogwarts, the one whose diligent work ensured that the magical knowledge and dangerous artifacts remained under control. What is even more intriguing about Pince is her personal connection to the school. Though little is known about her backstory, it is clear that she is deeply invested in the institution. The library, with its vast collection of magical works, was her domain. To her, it wasn't just a place to check out books, it was the core of Hogwarts' academic life, a space filled with history, wisdom, and perhaps even the ghosts of the past. The fact that she was so protective of it speaks volumes about her sense of duty to Hogwarts, even if that duty was often in the background, unseen by most. In many ways, Pince was a reflection of the less glamorous but equally important roles within the wizarding world. Characters like Harry and Hermione were the heroes who took on grand adventures and faced off against villains, but it was figures like Pince and Madame Pomfrey who kept the wheels of the school turning. They weren't in the spotlight, but their contribution was just as essential. Pince, with her unwavering devotion to her work, maintained the balance at Hogwarts, ensuring that the students were not only educated, but also protected from the dangerous knowledge that lay within the school's walls. While it is easy to focus on the large-scale battles and the heroic deeds of the main characters, the quiet, uncelebrated characters like Pince serve as the glue that holds the institution together. Without her careful watch over the library and the restricted section, Hogwarts would have been far more vulnerable to the misuse of dark magic. Her job was not glamorous, but it was crucial. She wasn't seeking recognition or glory, she was simply doing her job to the best of her ability. There is also something profoundly telling in how Pince's role reflects the wider structure of the wizarding world. The Wizarding Society, much like any other, needed its quiet, steady workers to keep things functioning. The wizards and witches who were not involved in the large battles or who didn't take center stage in the grand narrative of defeating dark forces were just as important. They provided the infrastructure, the knowledge, and the wisdom that allowed others to take on the larger threats. Pince, as the librarian, was one such figure. She may not have fought in the wars, but she stood as an essential protector of the magical world's most dangerous and valuable resource, knowledge. Though she was rarely seen at the front lines, Pince's impact on the wizarding world was undeniable. Her strict, sometimes fearsome demeanor hid a deep commitment to her role as the protector of magical knowledge. She was a character who was easy to overlook, but when one takes a closer look at her work and her influence, it becomes clear that she was one of the unsung heroes of the Harry Potter universe. Without her, the very structure of Hogwarts might have crumbled, and the hidden dangers within the walls of the school might have been unleashed. In the end, Irma Pince represents a different kind of heroism. She wasn't the one to wield a wand in battle or face down the dark forces of the wizarding world, but her role was equally critical. She embodied the quiet strength that comes with doing one's job with diligence and dedication, ensuring that the knowledge and wisdom of the magical world were preserved and protected for generations to come. It's a testament to the importance of even the most overlooked characters in the Harry Potter series and the role they play in shaping the world around them. Number 24, Stan Shunpike. Stan Shunpike is a character in the Harry Potter universe who has often been overlooked by readers and dismissed by many. While Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, and Ron Weasley have dominated the spotlight throughout the series, Stan occupies a quieter space in the narrative, one where his true importance is often obscured. To many, he is just the conductor of the night bus, a minor character with little more to do than drive the magical transport. But there is much more to Stan's role in the wizarding world than what is initially apparent. His arrest by the Ministry of Magic in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince is a crucial moment that highlights the darker side of the wizarding world during the rise of Voldemort's power and the tightening grip of the Ministry as control. In this moment, Stan becomes an unlikely symbol of innocence sacrificed by a corrupt system more interested in maintaining the appearance of order than in delivering justice. Stan Shunpike, a young wizard from a humble background, is an innocent bystander caught in the storm of political unrest and rising tension in the wizarding world. His role as the conductor of the night bus places him in an unassuming position, serving as a guide to those who need magical transportation. On the surface, Stan is nothing more than a commoner in the magical community, someone who helps travelers reach their destinations without much fanfare. He is neither a hero nor a villain, and this very lack of prominence makes him a fascinating and often overlooked figure. His life seems to be of little consequence, yet when the Ministry of Magic accuses him of being a Death Eater, it marks a turning point in his story and in the broader theme of injustice that runs throughout the Harry Potter series. Stan's arrest is a direct result of the Ministry's fear and the need to appear as though they are taking decisive action against the growing threat of Voldemort. When Stan is wrongly arrested as a suspected Death Eater, it becomes clear that the Ministry is willing to sacrifice individuals without evidence or due process in their desperate attempt to maintain control. The Ministry's approach is one of fear-driven actions, where the appearance of order and security matters more than actual justice. Stan is one of the many victims of this flawed system, a man who is arrested because it is easier to target an innocent person than to confront the true threats lurking in the shadows. The tragedy of Stan's story lies in the fact that he was a victim of this systemic failure long before his wrongful arrest, as his life had already been shaped by a world where people like him are overlooked and undervalued. Harry Potter himself reflects on Stan's situation with a level of sympathy that underscores how deeply Stan's arrest cuts into the fabric of the wizarding world. Harry, who has witnessed the worst of Voldemort's rise and the Ministry's inefficiency, recognizes that Stan could never have knowingly been involved with the Death Eaters. As Harry says in Half-Blood Prince, Stan wouldn't have the sense to be a Death Eater. This remark reveals that despite Stan's outwardly boisterous demeanor and his job as a magical bus conductor, he was no more involved in dark magic or dark deeds than anyone else in the wizarding world. Yet in the eyes of the Ministry, his arrest was a means of showing that they were acting decisively in a time of crisis, even if that meant targeting the innocent. Stan's fate exemplifies how innocent people can be caught up in the sweeping tide of paranoia and political maneuvering. Stan's significance extends beyond his specific role in the Ministry's campaign against suspected Death Eaters. He is in many ways a reflection of the common man during wartime. He represents those individuals who, while not directly involved in the major battles or significant events of the wizarding world, are still deeply affected by the conflict. They are the ones who live in the margins, struggling to make sense of a world that is constantly changing, torn between the rising power of dark forces and the feeble attempts of a government that no longer commands true respect or authority. Stan's story is one of survival and resilience. Even in the face of injustice, he may not be a grand figure, but his struggle reflects the broader theme of how ordinary people are caught in the crossfire of a war they do not fully understand, but are forced to endure nonetheless. It is worth noting that Stan, despite his perceived incompetence and lack of worldly sophistication, is not entirely helpless in his situation. He, like many of the characters in Harry Potter, manages to maintain his integrity and his humanity even when the world around him seems determined to strip him of both. His arrest is not a result of any personal malice or wrongdoing on his part. Instead, it is a product of the Ministry's need to appear active and vigilant in the face of an increasingly dangerous and uncertain world. This willingness to use people as pawns in their political game mirrors the way in which larger institutions often overlook the individual in times of crisis, as they prioritize the appearance of power over real moral considerations. There is a certain tragedy to Stan as character because he is caught between two worlds, one of ignorance and one of malice. He is not a person who chooses to engage with the darker elements of the wizarding world, but by virtue of his job and his association with the night bus, he becomes an unwitting symbol of the Ministry's overreach. He is, in essence, a scapegoat, a convenient target for a government eager to demonstrate its effectiveness. Stan's arrest is an illustration of how even the most innocuous people are affected by the war, and how the consequences of these larger conflicts ripple out to touch those who may seem the most distant from them. While Stan's role in the Harry Potter series is ultimately a minor one, his story is a powerful reminder of the larger themes of injustice and the failure of systems meant to protect the innocent. He is not a warrior, nor is he a villain, yet his life is shaped by forces beyond his control. In this way, Stan becomes a reflection of the many unseen victims of war, those whose lives are upended by forces they do not understand and whose voices are lost in the chaos. His arrest by the Ministry serves as a sobering reminder that in times of crisis, the innocent often suffer the most. The tragedy of Stan's character lies in the fact that, unlike other characters in the series, he does not have the opportunity for redemption or heroism. He is not given the chance to fight back against the system that wronged him or to prove his worth in any grand way. Instead, he remains a figure lost in the shadows, forever associated with a moment in history that was both unjust and avoidable. Yet in this quiet tragedy, Stan's story is more powerful than the grandest of his journeys. His life, like that of many others, is caught in the gears of a system that does not care for the individual. And in this way, Stan Shunpike becomes a poignant symbol of how war and politics can ravage the lives of even the most ordinary and innocent individuals. Number 25, James Potter. James Potter, the father of Harry, is often a character that remains in the shadows of the more prominent figures of the wizarding world. When we think of the Potter legacy, it's usually Harry's courageous journey that fills our minds. His father, however, is often left as a mere footnote, a figure whose name we recognize but whose character and personal sacrifices deserve far more attention. Paradoxically, James Potter is one of the most underappreciated characters in the Harry Potter universe, often remembered for the wrong reasons. Though we know fragments of his life, a talented Quidditch player, a notorious prankster, and a member of the Order of the Phoenix, he is overshadowed by the complexity of his son, Albus' story, and the tragic nature of his death. James' portrayal in the memories of Severus Snape and the shadows of teenage mischief often reduce him to a self-assured, reckless, and arrogant boy. Many of us are familiar with the instance where Snape recalls how James tormented him during their school years. Snape's bitter words paint James as a bully, forever cementing his character in a negative light. The image of James jeering at Snape, overshadowed by his own youthful arrogance, is hard to shake. Yet, this view of James is not only incomplete, but grossly unfair. The boy who tormented Snape in school was not the same person who would grow into the man who fought valiantly in the war, sacrificed his life, and ultimately became the father Harry never had the chance to truly know. As a student at Hogwarts, James Potter was certainly no angel. He, along with his friends Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, and Peter Pettigrew, was a mischievous prankster. His legendary antics with the Marauders, creating the Marauders map, being an exceptional Quidditch player, defined his time at school. James was at the center of every prank, leading his friends in their carefree exploits. However, it is essential to acknowledge that these pranks were, in a sense, a rebellion against the strictures of Hogwarts and the authority figures that tried to control them. At the time, James was a young man still finding himself. He didn't possess the maturity or wisdom he would later acquire, and that immaturity led to conflicts with figures like Snape. But behind the mischievous exterior, James Potter was much more than the bully that some remembered him to be. He was a man with a deep sense of loyalty to his friends and an even deeper love for his family. He was devoted to Lily Evans, Harry's mother, whom he pursued relentlessly despite initial rejection. The same determination that led James to torment Snape as a boy, driven by youthful arrogance, would later be applied to winning Lily's heart. And he did. This persistence, coupled with his good nature and growth over the years, ultimately won her over. He was no longer the arrogant schoolboy, but a man who understood the importance of love, sacrifice, and selflessness. James was not just a loyal friend, but a steadfast ally in the fight against Voldemort. As a member of the Order of the Phoenix, James was fully aware of the stakes of the war and the dangers it posed. The Order was a collective of the most courageous wizards, and James stood among them as a pillar of strength. His bravery was not only demonstrated in the battlefield, but also in the quieter moments of his life. He was willing to fight, not for the sake of glory, but to protect his family and the people he loved. Even more, his loyalty to his friends, especially Sirius Black, was unwavering. Despite the trials they faced, James never turned his back on his closest companions. The ultimate test of James's character came during the final confrontation with Voldemort. The Potters had made the ultimate sacrifice to protect Harry, going into hiding to avoid detection. James and Lily knew that Voldemort was closing in on them, and yet they chose to remain together, risking everything. When Voldemort arrived at their doorstep, James's first instinct was to protect his family. There was no hesitation. He knew the cost, death, but chose it over seeing his loved ones suffer. As he faced Voldemort's wand, James stood tall, unwavering, knowing that his time had come. He died not as the cocky teenager of his school years, but as a courageous man filled with love for his family. James's death, while tragic, was the culmination of a life lived with integrity, courage, and sacrifice. It's easy to remember the youthful arrogance of James Potter as he taunted Snape, but that was only one side of him, one that was swiftly outgrown as he matured. James was not a man defined by his mistakes as a teenager, but by the legacy he left behind. He sacrificed everything for his family, giving his life to protect Harry from the very man who had destroyed so many others. The tragic irony of James Potter's life is that he is remembered in the context of his son's struggle. Harry's fame has, in many ways, overshadowed his father's accomplishments. We know little about James from Harry's own memories, as Harry was too young to have any real connection with his father. We only get glimpses of James through the words of others, and even these fragments are tinged with the bitterness of Snape's memories or the admiration of those who knew him later in life. But perhaps that is the point. James' true legacy lies not in what others remember of him, but in the choices he made and the family he left behind. When Harry learns of his father's sacrifice, it comes not from direct knowledge, but through the discovery of his father's past. The truth about James' bravery, loyalty, and love is revealed in bits and pieces, through conversations with Sirius, through memories left by Dumbledore, and through the slowly unfolding story of the Marauders. Harry comes to understand that his father was a man who had grown just as Harry himself had grown throughout his own journey. James' development from an arrogant schoolboy to a selfless hero is a narrative that echoes throughout the Harry Potter series, and it is a story of redemption, love, and sacrifice. It is perhaps easy to forget that James was not a perfect man. He made mistakes, and in his younger years, his arrogance blinded him to the feelings of others, but these flaws do not define him. They were part of his journey, a journey that eventually led him to become the man he was when he faced Voldemort, and ultimately gave his life for his family. James was not just a symbol of youthful rebellion, but a testament to the power of change and growth. His willingness to sacrifice for the ones he loved is what ultimately defines his character. James Potter's legacy is one of love, sacrifice, and courage. He was a man who grew beyond his youthful mistakes and became a hero. And while his story is often overshadowed by the larger narrative of Harry's struggle against Voldemort, James' life and death remain a powerful example of what it means to live with honor and selflessness. In the end, James Potter's greatest legacy is not the memories others have of him, but the way he shaped his son and gave him the courage to face the darkness that lay ahead.